CTV News with Tara Schwartz.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with sad news about a legendary Montreal broadcaster and a beloved member of the CTV family. Sportscaster Randy Tieman died Friday at his home in Ontario. Randy worked at CFCF and then CTV Montreal for 34 years. Rob Lurie looks back at his life.
I mean, he doesn't look that good.
Known affectionately as everyone's favorite teddy bear, he was that smiling face who didn't take himself too seriously.
What was that? What was that? Water. Holy, was it ever?
It was hard to look away when Randy was doing his thing.
Thank you very much. This is salute for Pulse.
And his thing,
I don't know what I should say, that drive him crazy,
was making your day a little brighter.
You know, it was in Montreal yesterday, 25 below.
Oh my gosh.
When wrestling the champions,
Even if that meant taking a little punishment.
I can take you. You're mine.
It was just a fun way of doing stories, and I thought it brought more attention to the stories. At the same time, it didn't take away from the sport, and it just made it more fun to watch.
If asked to jump over 5 oil barrels on his ice skates, he would do it, knowing that he'd certainly go sprawling on the ice.
Randy was the most positive human being I've ever met.
His former boss, Ron Roosh, says Randy had that X factor.
He just knew how to put a piece together that would entertain and inform.
But he was far from just the funny guy.
No one has ever won more Stanley Cup championships, and I doubt anyone ever will.
Randy understood athletes and understood sports.
He punted well in this game, also went 3 for 3 in the field goal department.
He had that ability to draw the athlete in, and he could get, what you look for, good information and honest information from the people he dealt with.
It wasn't just the pros. Randy was extremely proud of the amateur athletes he covered in a feature called Randy's Rookies.
I'm Steven Moore, and I'm proud to be one of Randy's rookies.
And he'd get so excited when he'd tell me about these kids, and he'd say, oh, just wait and you'll see how great they're going to be when they grow up.
I used to be pretty good at this when I was a kid.
But what always stood out was how much fun he was having.
Great shot.
Randy knew how to have fun. He absolutely loved life. He loved so many things about life. He loved football. He loved spring training, baseball. He loved the holidays.
Hi, everybody in sports. Randy Cunneyworth is still looking for his first NHL win as head coach.
We all knew that Christmas season had officially started when Randy used to start wearing his Christmas ties.
Better watch out, better not cry.
He even did his Christmas shopping on air.
Stocking stuffers? This stuff is kind of neat. I like this. I like this.
Yeah, stop sign, Stool, your favorite city. Stop, it's like a stop sign. You got property of your Canadians, your Bruins, your Maple Leafs. Some people still. Sorry, Keith. No problem.
Everybody wanted to be his friend. If you were to say, who would you like to go see a baseball game with? Who would you like to invite over to your house for dinner? Randy, he'd be a blast.
Ready? There you go.
But Randy saved the real fun for his wife and 4 children, as he showed in this video he posted on Twitter.
Wrestlers go for walks and shower water.
But more than anything, Randy loved Leanne and the kids. He'd talk about them all the time. His face would light up.
They were his everything. Leanne and the kids were his everything. Every time he talked about any of them to me, one of the first things every time we talked to each other on the phone was he'd want to let me know what the kids were doing, their plans, and how proud he was of them. He was truly a family man who loved his family.
He's number one, Randy.
CFCF and Randy B.
Randy survived stage 4 cancer, open heart surgery, meningitis, and a coma, but he never stopped giving back. He was always asked to host charity functions, and he rarely said no.
There are very few people that anyone meets in the course of one's career, who find a place in both mind and heart. And Randy, for me, was one of those rare people, always cheerful, always optimistic, despite the many challenges life can present.
In May, Randy tweeted he got his first ever hole-in-one in golf. He was clearly enjoying retirement, even though Montrealers missed seeing that iconic mustache on TV.
You know, there's nothing better than spending a day at the Expo Spring Training Complex. Well, there may be one thing
One of the city's most beloved broadcasters died suddenly at home on Friday. Randy Tieman was 64. Rob Lurie, CTV News.
An incredible person. And as news spread today of Randy's passing, messages of condolences have been pouring in from fans, colleagues, and even the Prime Minister. Justin Trudeau tweeted, "For decades, Randy Tieman invited viewers to share in his joy for sports, professional, amateur, and everything in between. His love of the game came straight from the heart, and Montrealers felt it. He'll be deeply missed. My condolences to his family and everyone at CTV Montreal." And the Montreal Canadiens organization also reached out saying, "We're sad to hear of Randy's passing. Our sincere condolences go out to his family and friends." Montreal Gazette sports columnist Stu Cowan and former co-worker Sean Coleman tweeted about the indelible inspirations Randy left on their lives. And many, many fans wrote about how much they will miss Randy Tieman. We're going to continue now talking about the much-loved Randy Tieman. He touched so many lives and had such an impact. His laughter, the way he lived his life, his generosity. Joining us in this conversation, two people who knew him well. Sports columnist from NHL.com, Dave Stubbs, and Dick Irvin, one-time sports director here when we were CFCF Television. Welcome to you both.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you.
So let's begin with you, Mr. Irvin. What was Randy like as a young broadcaster? Many people say he had the it factor. What do you think?
Well, I don't know really what that means, but what I do remember, and I guess it's the same thing, that Randy lit up a room when he walked in. You know, he, right from the very beginning at 405 Ogilvy Avenue, that's what always struck me about him. See, he was radio and I was TV for the most part. But we didn't work together that much except on some hockey games when CFCF Radio was carrying the hockey. And, you know, he probably lit up the broadcast booth at the Forum. I mean, I would arrive for work in my usual grumpy self, and he would fix that in a hurry. And it didn't matter where you were, whether you're on the golf course, at a banquet, or whatever. Randy lit up the room, and that's what my main memory is going to be of Randy Tieman.
I couldn't agree with you more, actually. And Mr. Stubbs, Randy, I think, was the kind of person that everybody liked. Is that rare in the sports world?
I think it is, Tara. You know, the journalism business is such a fickle thing. It's very competitive. A lot of people are fighting for the same scraps, especially in the news business nowadays, where really there are fewer scraps to be had. And a guy like Randy, I never heard a bad word, I never heard a jealous word ever spoken about him. I think Dick touches upon something quite interesting. Randy was larger than life. When he would walk into a room, he literally would light the place up. He was this human teddy bear, and he just had this great sense about him that whenever you were around him, he had a story, he had a laugh. Anyone who ever heard Randy laugh would sort of hear this little giggle that he had. And there was something about him, there was just always this twinkle of mischief in his eye, and Randy always knew a little bit more than he was letting on, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things, many things that I loved about Randy was how much he loved to talk about anything. I think he just loved people. Would you say that, Mr. Stubb, that that's what part of made him so relatable to those watching?
I think so. I think that Randy's greatest strength, and I've mentioned this to anyone I've spoken with today, is that really it was about people first. It was about the human being first, and then it was about the athlete. And I think that in today's day and age, and certainly maybe this goes back a long way into the sports journalism business, athletes are seen as athletes, and people don't understand that these are human beings who have weaknesses and foibles and warts like all the rest of us. And Randy always kind of took it upon himself to tell the people stories, and when people could actually connect with the person, they had a better sense of who the athlete was and what made the athlete tick.
He really did. And when you look back at his career, the way he got involved, getting into the ring or picking up a bat, he would do anything. Mr. Irvin, would you say Randy was unique in that way? I'm guessing you probably both have a little anecdote about that.
Well, do you remember when Randy had a feature on, one of the things that is really sorely lacking in local television now is the coverage of local sports. Not the pros, not the Canadians or the Alouettes, but local sports. And Randy had that feature, I think it was called Randy's Rookies.
That's right, Randy's Rookies.
He would pick a leading athlete, young athlete in Montreal somewhere and do a feature once a week. I thought that was terrific. That was something that Montreal sorely needed and sorely needs again. But that just shows you that how he thought about, no, he, you know, never mind trying to win the Stanley Cup, but how about the kids that are coming up? And that really told me something about him and his attitude, not only toward his work, but his attitude toward the people that made up our work.
I think there was also something really fatherly about it.
Yeah, and Randy never took himself seriously. That's the thing that I think we all enjoyed about him. I mean, no one was going to poke more fun at Randy Tieman than Randy Tieman himself. And I don't know how many different times you would see him and you would be ready to call him on something. Maybe it would be one of his Christmas ties, or it could be just something about his mannerism that day. And before you could open your mouth and start to poke fun at him, he'd say, whoa, whoa, hold on, and he would sort of head you off at the pass. And that was always one of the fun things about him. He never took himself too seriously.
Randy referred to himself as always being in a happy place, even when he was yelling at the television in the newsroom because a team was losing or someone made a bad move. He held on to that love of life right until the end. Is that part of his legacy, do you think, to live big every day, both of you?
Well, I think what he did in my association with him, you start off by talking about him when he first arrived at a place like CFCF, is that he wanted to learn. I found that out very early in the piece with Randy, and he was working for me for a while, but he wanted to learn, you know, and I think that says a lot about, sure, he had fun and he this and that, but he wanted to make sure he knew what he was talking about. And for the most part, unlike some other guys who worked at CFCF, like me, for the most part it worked.
And Dave, last word to you.
Do that. He was a sponge,
Yeah. Last word to you, Dave.
He was a sponge, and his love of life was so good. I remember there was a story that Randy was going to be doing with Jacques Rougeau and Pierre-Carl Ouellet, the Quebecers, World Wrestling Entertainment performers, and he was going to get in the ring with them. And Randy knew that I knew these two guys, and he got on the phone with me, and I said, Randy, you want to watch out, because Jacques Rougeau is going to give you the flying head scissors off the top rope, or a flying drop kick, or he's going to give you a pile driver. I think by the time Randy finally got in the ring, he was absolutely petrified. He had no idea whether or not he was going to survive and whether he was going to walk out of that ring under his own steam. Well, of course, Jacques Rougeau just gave him a mild little shoulder toss. When Randy hit the mat, the laugh on, really the laugh and the smile on his face was both, I think, how much fun he was having and the relief that he actually was going to be able to leave the ring and not be in traction. So I'll miss that very much about him. Again, it was just the love of life that Dick spoke to. I mean, he just was this big, gregarious, fun-loving guy, and that's the Randy who we all knew and loved.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for your time today and for sharing such wonderful stories about an incredible person. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara.
Thanks, Tara.
And we'll be right back. Much he meant to all of us here at CTV Montreal, and to offer our sincere condolences to the family he loved more than anything.
Of course, and I think through Rob's piece we heard him laugh, and that's what we'll remember the most. His booming laughter in the newsroom and his big smile, and of course he will be sorely missed.
There was this one actual photograph in Rob's piece where he was lying on the desk talking to one of our producers at the time, and I just thought, there's Randy.
There's Randy.
You know, just a big, lovable person, and
fun and comfortable with everybody. Yeah.
So here's one more time, a look back at the life of the unforgettable Randy Tieman.